the annual State of the Birds report comes out and we summarize it here. A bird that's been missing for over 200 years that was last seen by Charles Darwin is rediscovered on an island, and an update on the bird flu, as well as your rare bird update. All this and more coming up on this month's Breaking Bird News. A study in 2019 found that 1/3 of North America's birds have been lost in the last 50 years. But what have we done since finding out this information? Well, a new study published this year in 2025 shows that we're still losing the birds. Nothing has changed. For example, duck populations started to do pretty well when conservation efforts went up, but they have experienced a sharp decline in the last couple years. Scientists say that 1/3 of North America's birds need conservation efforts specifically for them, or they're not going to make it long into the future. Conservation efforts must be giving more power, more flexibility, and more funding as well. We've been attempting this conservation thing for decades at this point, and what we are doing is not working. Partly because the conservation efforts can't keep up with things like climate change, for example, but also because we need more flexibility and more innovation to be able to save these birds. For policymakers that want a reason to support the birds, there are over 100 million Americans who are part of the birdwatching and birding hobby. This has generated the U.S. economy $279 billion annually. Link to the full report will be added in the description below. Many believe that the Galapagos Crake was extinct on the island of Floriana for the last 200 years. In fact, the last sighting of this bird was by Charles Darwin all the way back in the mid-1800s, in the year 1835 to be exact. However, recent sightings of the Galapagos Crake on the island of Floriana means the first sightings in the last 200 years and confirms that the bird is still present on the island of Floriana. Although the bird is found on most of the other Galapagos islands, it is still listed as a vulnerable species and was thought to be locally extinct on Floriana. Now, there is a possibility that the bird recolonized the island after several hundred years. In fact, scientists and researchers have been trying a culling program of invasive species such as cats and rodents that came to the island on ships and ended up wiping out a lot of the native flora and fauna in the area. Now, these culling of the invasive species has actually had a very positive impact on the island, and it's possible that if a Galapagos crake made its way back to Floriana, it could thrive. However, scientists say this is not likely. They think that the bird has been there for the last 200 years. Number one, it doesn't really fly very well, so it would be really hard for it to get there in the first place. And number two, it has been found in different locations on the island, not just in one concentrated spot, leaning to the possibility and likelihood that it has actually been hidden from us for the last 200 years. Next steps for the scientists are to collect DNA genetic analysis to see if this bird is part of that original 1835 colony or if it is a recolonized version of the birds on the nearby islands. The bird flu is a major concern not only for people but also obviously for birds. And despite what some people have said recently, it is also a concern for wild birds. Wild birds are known to contract the avian flu, specifically the H5N1 strain that we're seeing. It impacts hawks, eagles, falcons, crows, game birds, seabirds, and especially waterfowl. Now, the bird flu spreads through saliva and feces, and this is either ingested by other birds or it is inhaled, causing the spread of the bird flu. However, science has shown that there is a relatively low risk for songbirds this year. So it is not imperative that you take down your feeders. At least there has been no official requirement to do so. Unless you have domestic animals like chickens and ducks in the area, chickens and ducks are much more likely to contract the bird flu. And so it's important that maybe you do take down your feeders in that case, just in case there is an infected songbird that gets in the mix. If you find dead birds in your yard, make sure to call your local state wildlife agency to see if they want to run any analysis or testing on the bird. Also, if you have to touch the bird, make sure you wear gloves and also keep your pets away. Mammals have been seen to contract the disease, and typically that's through ingesting an infected bird. And now it's time for everyone's favorite segment, the rare bird update. Starting where we left off on February 22nd, Arizona got their second state record of American woodcock. On February 26th, North Carolina got a state record of Townsend's warbler. Unfortunately, I'm not sure which number record this is, but it's still a really cool bird and I wanted to include it here. On March 6th, we head over to Arkansas that got their first state record of Clark's grebe. On March 8th, we head to Minnesota that got their second state record of pygmy nuthatch. On March 9th, we head over to Connecticut that got their fourth state record of green-tailed towhee. On March 10th is a bird that was initially found on December 19th, but they didn't report it for a while just because it was on private land and the owners asked them not to, private hunting land that is. And this is in Texas for an ABA first, possible Siberian stonechat. It's definitely a stonechat species, we're just not sure exactly which one it is. On March 11th, Colorado got their 9th state record of crested caracara. And March 13th, North Carolina got their 4th state record of sage thrasher. Now rounding this out, March 17th, West Virginia got their first state record of Bullock's oriole. That's going to do it for this month's Rare Bird Update. Not a ton, but a lot of quality, a lot of first state records and second state records, as well as an ABA first record, according to eBird. I'm not exactly sure on that, but I'm pretty sure it's at least a United States first in that Siberian stonechat. Let me know in the comments below what news stories have you heard this month that you think should have been in this segment. As always, you can send me news stories over Instagram, or you can join my Discord server and send them there. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey. I hope to see you all next time on Bright Eyed Birding Learn.